Your hand if you need another minute. Ready. Good. All right, everyone ready? Is everyone ready?
Ready.
All right, you guys. Let's give our full attention to our next presenter, our feature presentation of the night. I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine. She's a psychotherapist and a survivor, and it's Anastasia Sprout.
Thank you, Victoria. I am honored to get to be here with you tonight. These are the bravest warriors I know. That's you. Who voluntarily came to a presentation called Let's Talk About Satanic Ritual Abuse, run by the woman who started the Seattle Truth Network. Yeah. People who've been going out to the streets, bucking peer pressure, the military grade, mind control, COVID agenda, and it's an honor to be among you. And there'll be some people watching this on video who are not here today. You are welcome, and thank you for your courage. We do this for the children. And for a decent society.
Yeah.
So, I want to give an outline for tonight's presentation. We will be covering a lot of ground. I want to start with a prayer that I've affectionately come to call Protect and Connect. I never talk about satanic ritual abuse without prayer, and I would advise it. We're going to talk about satanic ritual abuse and grief, the mainstreaming of Satanism in society, another prayer for the children. Then we're going to go into secret family networked satanic ritual abuse, which I heard called the Parasite class. So I don't use the term the elites anymore. Then we're going to review a successful prosecution of satanic ritual abuse in Washington State, SRA lies, and the law. And we're going to end with a call to action, because together we can stop this.
Yeah. Woo!
So if you feel complete, you can go ahead and leave now. Opening prayer. So I visualize a beautiful iridescent sphere of light around this space. And it's full of love and courage and humans and their bodies and their hearts. And I see this around us. It sparkles and shines. And this is a place for people to share an intention, which I hope is, and thanks for the reminder about the cell phones. If you have a phone, turn it down or off or vibrate or something. If you gotta go, please, grab it. We're all friends here. This is not a precious time. So in this sphere, we are protected. We are protected from what might seek to be harmful or malevolent, because we're here with an intention of love. And in this space, all are welcome. Even if the intention is not quite at this level of vibration, we hold space to come back. And I know that maybe some people here, or maybe some people watching this videotape, will be actively involved in satanic practices. That's just how it goes. And so we'll hold space for all when they're ready to come join us in love and be part of learning about this so we can end it. And I call in all higher resources that can assist us, however that may be, from all creation. And I thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your help and support. Blessed be. Amen. Amen. So I would like to ask for some volunteers. So I would like to ask, so this is a tree called Grandfather in Stout Grove in the Redwoods National Park Forest in California. And grandfather's reminder of the groundedness. And I would like to ask if anyone here might be able to serve as a grounded nurturer in case this presentation evokes grief, which we will talk about. When I gave this presentation before, someone remembered their own sexual abuse as a result of watching and taking it in. So I'm just wondering if anyone here might be willing to serve as a nurturing presence, giving a hug, maybe someone to talk with if someone needs to after. Would you raise your hand? Okay, I've got 1 there, 2 there. I knew you would volunteer. 3 there. Okay. Beautiful. So where's the little fairy bag? Oh, it's there. Kevin, would
Do you want the fairy bag?
Yeah, would you bring the fairy bag up? Thank you.
Feels so ominous.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, I just find that including our inner children, that they can be nurtured, but also kind of go into a safe space for tonight inside and not just have to come out and hear all this stuff. This is Eliza. She's a white dragon. So she's here just as a protector. So I'll put her right here. Speaking of ominous, this one doesn't have a name, but she's here. So if afterward you need a hug or a little stuffed animal, these will be here. Also, should we pass around? We have these tissues in case anybody needs a tissue. Pass those around. Also some spritzes, clearing the space. There we go. And a tuning fork, which tunes the sound of Om, which is kind of reassuring. So we'll just make a little relaxation station over here, so that after we're done, if you want to come on over, we'll get you some nurture. So I gave a talk a few years back called Extreme Abuse 101, and I gave it to helping professionals, criminal justice, social workers who worked with CPS, expanding our therapeutic container to better serve our clients. Because these people were seeing things they didn't understand, and I was trying to give them information to help them. And that was Extreme Abuse 101, and I posted this in 2016. So this presentation tonight, let's talk about satanic ritual abuse, is not a 101 level. This is a 201 level, I would say. So just if for some reason this material activates you and you need to stop, and we'll talk a little bit about that, this is something you get to check out. I think it's a little easier to digest than what we'll hear tonight. So, satanic ritual abuse and grief. What is satanic ritual abuse? So this is in the grief category. We want to define it. So if you've never heard of it, it's an ancient system of manipulation to control the minds, crush the hearts, and corrupt and steal the souls of children and all humans. Now, some people say, well, gee, that's pretty harsh. Like, some people are Satanists and they're just kind of rebellious and, they're just into their own thing and they're wearing an upside down pentagram and it's no big deal. And I would say, yeah, that absolutely can be true. There are different levels of how Satanism is practiced. Although I also believe that that level of Satanism provides a great cover when people want to deny what's going on behind the scenes. Child sacrifice and sacrificing a virgin stories have occurred across many cultures. Anybody heard stories like that? Ancient cultures? Okay, lots of people. Sure, we've heard of that. So those would be examples of satanic ritual abuse, even if it's not technically Satan that they're worshiping. Satanic ritual abuse is a malevolent death cult designed to lead people to worship and commit evil and depravity. It is based on the belief that violating and murdering children and innocents in general leads to power. It is a form of parasitism. Using the term satanic is really an umbrella term. The deity may or may not be named or may be different. So you may have heard of Luciferianism, voodoo, different practices. Some may not even name a deity per se, but use some of these same practices that we're going to be hearing about here. So if you have a question as we go through, go ahead and wave. Just let me know. Otherwise, we'll take Q&A at the end. So I learned about something from my friend Tim Lastly called ChatGPT. Anybody heard of ChatGPT? Open artificial intelligence. You can just ask it anything. And so I asked, is satanic ritual abuse real, ChatGPT? And what ChatGPT said was, you can see that. There's no scientific evidence to support the existence of satanic ritual abuse, SRA, as a widespread phenomenon. I would argue that anything with an acronym is widespread. Chat. While there may be individual cases of people who claim to be victims of SRA, there is no reliable evidence to support the idea of a widespread underground network of Satanists engaging in organized abuse. The concept of SRA emerged in the 80s, very recently, as part of a moral panic surrounding the supposed existence of satanic cults in the United States only, and other countries. Many of the claims of SRA were based on anecdotal evidence and testimony from supposed victims rather than empirical data. Numerous studies conducted in the decades since have failed to find any concrete evidence of SRA, and many of the claims have been debunked as a result of suggestibility, false memories, and other psychological phenomena. In conclusion, there is currently no scientific evidence to support the existence of satanic ritual abuse as a widespread phenomenon. Claims of SRA should be treated with skepticism and examined critically before being accepted as true.
Science.
Science! Where have we heard this kind of arguments before?
I guess we can go home now.
Yeah, right.
Right. Put on your skepticism armor.
Yeah.
I'm actually a fan of skepticism, but not for children who are alleging abuse.
Yeah.
But sure, let's be skeptical about something. Let's research, let's ask questions. Sure, we're adults, we're intelligent, we have minds, we have thoughts. So I'm going to show you some more. I want to talk about allies. So allies is the term for someone who does not identify as a direct experiencer of childhood satanic ritual abuse, but is interested in the topic and feels supportive. So we would not call ChatGPT an ally. Allies go through stages. So this is under the heading of SRA and Grief. So first of all, at some point in your life, you'd never heard of this thing. But then you heard something, and for many people, when they first heard it, maybe they didn't believe it. It's too extreme. It's hard to believe, which is a normal stage, right? But then they might have moved into belief. They heard something that resonated. They knew someone that seemed credible. Something about it started to shift. They went into belief, or they were kind of doubtful, but they were also kind of curious. Often allies at this stage, if they get curious, they research and learn. And they may go on to educate to help others learn. Eventually, allies go into direct action to protest, to protect children and support survivors. However, it is vitally important as one studies these topics to grieve and have support to process the traumatic reaction to horror. Because if we don't, we will shut down and/or act out. So I myself, in the presentation of this, noticed myself eating a lot more carbs, more sweets, just kind of seeking more comfort. And it's easy to do because it's so upsetting. But it's also normal to go back or up and down the scale. So a while it can seem really true, and then you hear something you're like, no. Just want to honor that. But there comes a time when you know enough that you cannot fail to act. And I'm guessing that's what got you here tonight. It's just what needs to be done, action. We have a grief reaction to things that threaten us, and that can look like shock, anxiety, anger, confusion, disbelief, sorrow, disgust, outrage, hurt, horror. Insert all the painful feelings here. So as you see in your handout, I have given you a feeling wheel. Everybody got your feeling wheel? Okay, take a look at that. So many of us did not grow up with families that taught us feeling words. However, as humans, we do have feelings, and a lot of them. People have a different range of how much they have. But this is it's a free resource on the internet. And we're going to be having some opportunities to share some feeling words as we go tonight. I am a psychotherapist after all. So this is just a cue or tool for you to use if you have feelings that you're willing to say a feelings word. On the other side, we have what's called a stress thermometer. So as you can see, it's color-coded. At the bottom is peace and no distress. And as you go up the thermometer, 10, 20, 30, mild to moderate distress, 30, 40, 50, moderate to strong distress, 70, quite distressed. So what I encourage people in these kinds of presentations is to get out a penny or a coin and put your little thermometer scale on the table and put a coin at where you are right now. So I would like you to do this right now. If you have pizza in front of you, you might need to move it, or you will get pizza on your thermometer. Yes. So please get out a coin. Does anybody have coins anymore? No? What's that? A penny? What is that for? Okay, put a knife at where you are right now. Okay, so all this lead up. Anybody want to share what number you are on your distress thermometer?
I'm a 10.
You're a 10. Thank you. 10. 10. Okay. 20.
That's good.
No distress or slight distress. 20. 30. Okay. 30. Mild distress, but able to function. So you can see we're already in different places. That's how it is with humans. We have different feelings. We're in different places, and it's all okay. What I would suggest as we go through this presentation, we'll have time to check in on where we are in the thermometer. If you notice you're going up the scale, which is likely, then just notice how high you get. If you get to a 70, it's probably time to take a walk. Okay? The other thing, well, I'm just going to keep going here. What if I'm telling your story? So I know there's at least 2 survivors in this room who've been through satanic ritual abuse, but there may be more. In fact, I had someone ask me just at dinner, what are the signs? How do you know? Because I don't remember everything from my childhood. Maybe this is part of my story. So although I didn't prepare diagnostic criteria for us today or key even signs to look for, you will see some things on here, and you might notice your reaction to what you see here. If you find yourself having big reactions to what you see here, maybe it is allied grief, or maybe there's more. So what I would encourage is, I also had a handout, it's really a blueprint of recovery is what I think of it as, which is the post-traumatic transformation plan for extreme abuse survivors. So that's very tiny letters, because there's a lot to do to heal. I was trying to get it all on one page. So if this is part of your story, then this is a recipe for you to see if you can work on self-care and develop your extreme trauma-informed healing community. It really takes an organized community to heal from organized abuse. And that just makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. So these are my best ideas of what you can do. It's really a checklist. It can be very overwhelming to look at the whole thing, but you can work on it with a therapist or with someone that you trust. So that's a resource for you if I'm telling your story. One of the things that someone suggested to me watching this presentation previously is that they found themselves hitting a spot in the presentation where they got very activated. So their penny went zoop, all the way to the top. And they still wanted to pay attention and they didn't want to leave the room. So what they did is they flipped over their transformation plan and they doodled. So there's many ways to kind of calm down, check out a little bit. You don't have to stay riveted on all this stuff. Or another thing to do, because that's kind of an escape behavior, which is a fine way to manage grief. Consciously distracting, if you're overwhelmed, is a fine thing to do. But you also might just make a note where you got upset. Was it this one? Was it that one? So that you can give yourself a rain check to come back and process it through again with a trusted person or a therapist, and ask yourself, why was it that one really got me? We talked about the thermometer. There's a clinical term called the SUDS, subjective units of distress, 8, 9, 10. On this scale, it's 80, 90, 100 thermometer. Basically, this idea that when humans hit a threat, they react. And common reactions, which we call the polyvagal theory, is to fight or flight. You've probably heard of that. It's the human mobilization response to threat, or freeze, like the little, the lizard is like, I freeze. There's also fall apart. So again, we have some tissues. If there's tears here, tears are welcome. In fact, if no one cries, it's a little strange. So if no one does, I will. So, however, in the midst of loving self-care, this is what I'm talking about, is what we need is to rest so we can digest and then refresh so that we're not overwhelming ourselves. So we'll be having some pauses to do that. It's okay during this presentation to leave the room. It's okay to disbelieve. It's okay to make notes, tune out, doodle, or turn off this video. If you're watching on video, come back later or not. All of that is okay. So let's practice resting and digesting. 0, 10, 20, 30. Anybody over 30? I might be. Okay. And this is not to, you don't even have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but it's just, deep breathing can be a way of resting and digesting. I've been getting into cold water plunges. That's a real opportunity to practice deep breathing when my system goes, try to go lower. Okay. In addition to grief, we can also have a relief reaction to talking about satanic ritual abuse, which may seem ironic, but if we can talk about it openly, then hope is indicated. We can feel this on some level, I believe, in our society, whether it is named or not. It's popular in TV and movies and music and fashion, but not in, quote, real life. When we hear direct stories and information on how it works, it can be helpful. Sometimes we imagine the worst, but we don't really know. Or we see sensationalized stories and we don't know. People are amazingly resilient. As I said, there's at least 2 survivors in this room, and there's many more out there who are out there doing good and healing. So the humans are amazing. In some ways, that is the biggest lesson of this story. This information can be a catalyst to start or step up our own healing if we're in a healing journey. And together we can do something, which we'll talk more about at the end. So let's move into mass mainstreaming Satanism. I want to highlight the difference between mass mainstreaming Satanism and secret family network Satanism. So what I mean by mass mainstreaming Satanism is something that has involved decades of social grooming, more than decades, but I'm pointing out some decades. It focuses a lot on enslavement of boys and men, wants to immobilize men who can take action and stop this, especially with pornography. It's a big way that men are kind of hooked in and immobilized, distracted. There's Satanism in entertainment. Everybody sees Satanism in entertainment. Anybody see that stuff? We're going to see some of that tonight. Celebrities promoting the occult is part of mass mainstreaming, right? Influencers. Malevolent music can be part of that. Sports and satanic practices. Targeting children through the fashion industry and adults. Psychological operations and recruitment via computer games, be a way. And then certainly the destruction of women and the mother-child bond is a big part of the mass mainstreaming of Satanism. So the secret family networked SRA we're going to talk about in part 2, and that is more the individuals. So I'm going to come back to that. But for now, we're going to go into the mass mainstreaming of Satanism. So I contend that there have been deliberate decades of grooming society, and these are just some examples. There's so many more. The 50s, television, advertising, television. We're going to tell you what your vision is. 60s, promiscuity and drugs were mass promoted, engineered. 70s, computers coming into the home, pornography. We're taught that gentlemen use Playboy bunnies and pets. Objectification of women and the breaking down of relationships and families. 80s, rock rage gore is all the rage. Ozzy Osbourne was an example. 90s, welcome to the internet world. Here we have more of the rock despair angle, drug suicides like Kurt Cobain. Anniversary of his death is coming up. 2008, we're looking at cell phones, Twilight series, romancing vampiric parasitism and blood, entering the mainstream, massive sellers. 2010, pornography gets more and more violent, as articulated in the book Portland by Gail Dines. 2011, 50 Shades of Grey. Now we're romancing bondage, domination, discipline, sadism, and masochism, marketed specifically at girls and women. 2020, we have an experimental vaccine, poison, directly into the bloodstream. So innocence being a lack of guile or corruption, purity, harmlessness, lack of malice, inoffensiveness. So we think about where human culture was before the 50s and where we are now. And there's certainly a process. So where we are now, 2020s, mass mainstreaming Satanism. So here are some examples. This is a television show called Little Demon, and it's about a little demon.
Wow.
Here we have an article in People magazine. Now this is a second tier story. So the first tier story was that Megan Fox, who is kind of a classically Hollywood beautiful starlet movie star, and Machine Gun Kelly got engaged, and what she announced is, we're engaged, and what we did immediately was drank each other's blood.
And then they puked. You can't keep blood in the stomach for long.
So what happened after that is there was an outcry. People said, hey, that's gross. What is that? And so then they published a follow-up story, and they said, well, we consume each other's blood, but it's for ritual purposes only, and it's just a few drops. So you see kind of the grooming. It's like first we come out with this, and then if there's an outcry, we pedal it back a bit. Right, okay, so. Okay, so what are some numbers? Same, different? Same. 30, okay, someone from a 10 to a 30. So we're just noticing where you're at. Okay. More on mass mainstreaming Satanism. Lil Nas X unofficial Satan Nikes containing human blood sell out in under a minute. March 28, 2021, so a couple years ago. This is from CNN Style. So if you don't know, CNN had some press for executives that were tied to Epstein Island. So I don't trust CNN as a source. I don't necessarily believe that they sold out in under a minute, but this is just the idea of, a fashion, famous person. You see the pentagram, you see the red and black, satanic colors.
They also made a shoe that actually had blood in it. Do you remember that? Is that the shoe?
It's
in the
sole. This is the shoe.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Containing human blood.
I didn't read it.
And really, this is advertising grooming.
Yes, exactly.
Is what it
Advertising
is.
grooming, that's
The
right.
fact checkers aren't fact checkers, they're advertising companies that create whatever is needed for the client that paid them to give them what they need, whatever, to make you look, to make you think. records and things like that they tell you this band sold this many?
Maybe,
They're just
right.
making it up.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
So we
They
decide
really
who we
are.
trust and who we listen to.
Yeah, whoever
Did
they-
the article say where they got the human blood?
I don't know.
They cloned it from
They get it from children.
So there's
Yeah.
them. I heard it was
obviously,
cloned.
yeah, cloned blood from the artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
That too.
Yeah.
These artists, they sell their soul for this thing.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And they put it in our faces because they have to show it to you. And they all worship Satan.
Well, I don't know that all artists do.
They,
No, the ones that have sold their
the
soul,
ones that have
I
sold
think
their
is what
soul.
he
See,
said.
the ones that don't make it good, great, at the top, all the awards and all the millions of, followers and sales and all that, those are the good people. The ones at the very top, you have to make that deal.
Thank you.
And it's-
Appreciate the comment, talking about people making contracts with dark deities for favors and power. So going back to the definition from before. Okay. Yeah. So anybody getting up to 60? Okay, all right, we're okay. 45, okay, thank you. Now we're looking at the fashion industry. This girl wears an all-seeing eye shirt with an all-seeing eye quote-unquote tattoo on her hand. The main symbols of the occult elite, I call Parasite. On her pants are the numbers 3 and 6. Is that supposed to stand for 666? We have another little boy. This kid is hiding one eye while wearing a shirt featuring a skull with one eye hidden. Also his pants feature all-seeing eyes. How can they make it more obvious to you? So these are occult symbols on children. Celine Dion clothing line is one of them. There's a website called Vigilant Citizen that has kind of a watchdog for Hollywood type occult symbols.
Kids in a cage. He's in a cage.
And you also notice he's in a cage. Yeah, did you see that? Yeah. So this is the grooming of occult symbols on children, child in a cage,
Was the kid holding? Yeah,
sold
what is
as
that?
fashion. I don't know.
Is that a knife?
It's like a flag.
Yeah, can you see that? Okay.
It looks like some sort of bracelet.
Yeah, bracelet
Or
maybe.
a tag, a fashion line tag or
Could
something.
be a tag.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Balenciaga.
check in, Sai. How you
It's
doing?
probably hanging off the sleeve of the kid's shirt that he was wearing.
Could be, yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the wheel, the feelings wheel. Anybody got any feelings they want to call out?
Disgusted.
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 Didn't want Celine Dion to be part of this. Disappointed, or it's kind of.
Hostile. Perplexed.
Pardon?
Hostile.
Hostile, angry and hostile feelings. Yeah. Uh-huh. Someone doing that deliberately to children. There's the mama bear, papa bear. You get pissed. Yeah. Outrage. Yeah. That's right. Uh-huh.
Perplexed.
Perplexed. Okay. Kind of confusing. Why? Yeah. That question comes up. Why? Okay. So thank you. Anybody else? All right. Let's keep going. So this is titled Satanic Kids Games. So this is a video game, and this is a couple guys who are concerned about what they saw, and so they made this video. It starts with information about the game, like the game trailer, and then it goes to one of them actually playing the game and talking about it.
This is the #1 selling game on a child's platform.
Sermons from the Lamb.
You are the mighty Lamb, a massive monster in Devolver Digital's Cult of the Lamb. Saved from sacrifice by the one who waits, you're compelled to repay the dead by creating a cult in their name. So, here's a few tips on how to start your very first cult. Step 1. Grow your flock. Go crusading into the lands of the old faith to find new followers and defeat the false prophets. Back home, indoctrinate your new followers into the cult. Name them, change their form, and learn what makes them unique. Choose your doctrine to set the rules of your cult. Draw power from your followers by giving daily sermons and watch their faith grow. Step 2. Satisfy the faithful. As the mighty lamb, you have to tend to your flock. Lead them, feed them, and build your small community into a thriving woodland cult. Throw a grand feast. Shower them with gifts. Or maybe marry a follower. Keep your flock happy and your shrines will shine with their devotion. If the needs of your followers are not met, however, they will begin to lose faith. Step 3. Cleanse the non-believers. Unhappy followers will rise against you and try to persuade the others to leave the cult. Will you gently re-educate them in the ways of the Lamb, or perform dark rituals and sacrifice them to the gods? It's up to you what kind of cult leader you become. Starting a cult is no easy ride. You scavenge for resources and battle heretics, but righteous victory will be yours. So guide your flock, grow your power, and spread the word of the Lamb.
So what's the most satanic aspect about this? Everything?
Right now I'm about to summon one of our followers that died. And they're like, everybody misses Nanity.
Summoning him back from the dead?
I just think it's super weird that it's kitty. You know what I mean?
Like, very cute.
Going after the children.
He's guaranteed.
So what I can say is that this is actually quite a psychologically sophisticated game.
Wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Wow.
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 Like, you're gonna spend all day on that thing.
Hours and hours and hours. So even this, intimidate, use fear to make a follower work harder.
What these
Click.
games like to do is they like to time
Sounds like
you
a
out
cult.
too. They'll only let you play a few hours. They'll give you a ton of tasks and then make you sit there and dwell on it, and it lives in your head for a while. So
Okay,
that's
so
that's crazy.
maybe limiting the play to make you dwell on it. I haven't investigated this in great detail, but I definitely saw things that I remember from cult operations in terms of how cults or how the organization maintains power and control. And you know, what I suspect is a game like this is not only used to indoctrinate kids into thinking before they're really in their neocortex to have a chance to think this through about what it means to click that way or that way. You click that way, you get lots of power, so I click that way. Oh, is it kind of fun to be bad? I'll click that way. Oh, now everything's black and red. Okay. So I'll just, you know, I'll be an evil one. Who cares? It's not a big deal. But these clicks in the brain are agreements, and they're patterns. And so this is a potential socialization or training ground. And what I also suspect is that, you know, to more or less sophistication, a game like this, if it's an online internet game, is being used to track and recruit. Because you see who's going down which path, which decisions they're making. Certainly.
They can just use that metadata to find them in the 3D world.
Use the metadata, find them online, appeal to them in various ways. Find them on social media.
And you teach them that power doesn't come from good, it comes from bad.
Teach them power can come from bad, and it's okay to use.
You know, even mainstream violent sports is grooming for this stuff.
Mainstream violent sports is
Yes.
grooming. Yeah, thank you.
I'll talk about that later.
Thank you. Okay.
Teaching manipulation and control.
Teaching manipulation and control.
Right,
Yeah, Liz?
It was very interesting how they showed and was teaching them to go out and to indoctrinate them and to change their form. And it was just like, wow, don't we see that happening right before our eyes right now?
Yeah.
Just little pods here and there, and you know what people are doing. And I've talked to friends who have had kids over, and they're just like, they're a different identity at home than they are at school. They're going with a different name at school than they are at home. They're having a slumber party for their 16-year-old daughter, you know, and they're just amazed at what they're watching happening. You know, it's just crazy, but it's, you know, here's
see
an
it. You
idea.
see where, you know, where is it coming into their mind? Where people are getting ideas, or their friends playing. Let's all play together. This is a way of connecting socially. Hey, let's do this. Okay, so we're digesting a bit. Yeah.
Did it say where it was the best-selling game?
I don't know. Yeah, he said best-selling kids game in a young age is what it sounded like. He said young age, and you see
I take
the
care of kids for a living.
Uh-huh.
Like I've been in close contact with a lot of different kids over the last maybe 10 years.
Mhm.
I've never seen that one ever.
yeah. So hopefully
Most of
it's
the kids I know play games too, so I don't know where that game comes from.
okay. Yeah, check it out if you
Sorry.
see it out
It's a
there.
recent one, I'm looking up where it's sold right now.
Oh, really?
Pretty new game.
It sells on Telegram.
It was being promoted through Telegram. It is being sold on PC and probably other platforms, but I'm not seeing them right now.
Look like an app.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Yep. So let's go back and just check in. How's your number?
Well, I work on the team right now. You're pragmatic, so
I gotta go home
right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You've seen that one,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I'm at 50.
Okay. So just I just want to acknowledge,
And this is what I told you.
yeah, how the human nervous system moves up and down in relation to threat.
I've seen this before.
And things can threaten us related to ideas, images. Okay. So this is hopefully the toughest one that I have today. But do check your number, because if you're already at a 7 or 70, this one often has tipped people over the scales. So keep your breath if you're going to stay. Go low into your lower diaphragm. And there's no shame in taking a walk and just saying, I don't want to take this in right now. It's already a lot of information, and there's a lot more to come after this. So, okay. So I'm going to narrate this one. It came with very funky hip music, but I did not have the heart to play it. Yeah. So this looks like a male person who has a ball of what looks like a false pregnancy. The person's wearing all white. And you can see that there's a woman, I don't know, but looks like a woman next to this person who is looking at the person in white, kind of like, what the fuck is going on? And as I play this video, you'll see that at some point that the what looks like a woman next to this person gets up and leaves.
Yeah.
Right? So again, mobilization, like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to sit by this. So what you can't see is the person in white in their right hand is holding a knife, but you can get an idea of where this is going. Okay, so this is what is being shown as entertainment or performance. And here we go. This is from Instagram. So you see the blood, kind of pulling out the blood, but also the movements are very sensual. Now there's a glass, blood in a glass, drinking blood, kind of sinuous, sexualized movements.
What the fuck?
Reaching in, pulling out a fake baby doll, holding it up. You see the sexualization of the baby, of the blood, going down to the crotch, up. You see the smiles, as if this is very pleasurable. Pulling out maybe the umbilical cord, snap. Okay. So, I want to say, no.
Yeah.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
And they want our children.
Yeah.
So a lot of what Satanism is about destroying the mother-baby bond. I've never seen a female pregnant person do that to themselves. I've never seen that. I don't know if anyone here has. But it is a kind of a glorification of the kinds of things that are done to pregnant women. Absolutely. And that's part of ritual abuse, quite commonly.
Wow.
So, oops, wrong way. We want to go towards stop, right? Yeah. So yeah, let's move into rest and adjust from that one. Yeah.
Well, I know we're in reset and digest, but my question is, does that really happen in rituals in satanic, like real ritual satanics?
Yes, so part of rest and digest is talking about what you see and asking questions and trying to digest. So if we think about the stages of grief, right, I don't know anything, I haven't heard anything. I'm hearing something, but I don't know the details. So you're kind of at that curious stage. We talked about the allies. Does that really happen? And the answer is yes. Yes, pregnant women are murdered in rituals. Horrible things happen to babies. That is part of the worst of satanic and other types of occult ritual abuse.
What I got from that, and I've seen this before, is that it's a pushback from the left about the anti-abortion right.
Sure.
And they always do that, and I don't really. I've actually seen a live performance that was really similar to this too, and I'm like, oh, is that again? But it's almost like they kind of don't help their cause out. Like to me it just I don't think I'm like kind of like, I don't think all abortion is bad. I think there should be a little freedom somewhere, if you know what I mean. But I also think that they take everything so far over the past to like somehow this makes they're saying, no, this is great. Look, you can handle the blood. They're desensitizing people to it, to say, and really they're saying it's against the right, and they're saying that you can't take away our freedom to abort our babies if we want to. But I think by grotesquely portraying some of those anger feelings, it doesn't really help their cause and goes more toward, I guess, the darker side.
Thank you. So I appreciate your point that maybe the intention of performances like these has nothing to do with Satanism, or it's stated not to, it has to do with abortion. And what I will say is, it looks familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think about how they say, oh, this isn't intense Satanism, we're just kind of rebellious, I'm just kind of, it's a edgy, so.
I think sometimes they don't know what they're doing, they're just going for shock value for performance as well, like,
There's all kinds of things that happen in art.
This attention if I do something.
Sure, the quest for attention, yeah.
But it probably still hits on those really dark souls that they're looking for, and brings them right in.
Well, and it's clearly a dark soul
It's a subway to
performing
that. I mean, I think it's still gonna find the right people that they're looking for, which of course are the wrong people, but.
Well, I think the key point that I want to share is this idea of this is accessible to children who are seeing this information as entertainment and as normalized. So you comment back there?
Yeah. Oh, you said it looks familiar.
Did
you see something like that?
So I have another presentation that is more about my own personal story, and although I intended this to be about my personal story, all this other stuff kind of came up first. It was like, I think this is more like the 201, like setting the stage more. But what I will say is that the sacrifice of babies, like we talked about, that you've heard in ancient cultures, sacrifice babies, it's very much alive and well. In the death cult, ironically. So, yeah. Yeah?
And do they actually get women to stab through their own stomach?
I have not, I'm not aware of that. Yeah, it's typically women are drugged, they are restrained and murdered in sacrifice. Yeah.
Technically, all abortion
So I appreciate the, kind of the bringing in of the abortion question, although I would say that's beyond the scope of my intended presentation today. But I honor all kind of, where people are about that. What does that mean? Okay, so how are people doing on your thermometers?
It's not high enough.
Needs to go higher. We need a higher scale. Yeah.
From 70 back down to a 40.
70 to 40. Okay, so some digesting going on with the conversation, with resting. Anybody want to toss out feeling words?
Just pissed and it's evil.
Pissed and saying, that's evil, that's psychotic, I'm disgusted. Overwhelmed, okay. Angry.
That video came out years and years and years ago.
Yeah. It's not brand new.
It was at a bar. I mean, the guy was, I think he was playing a gig. And it was like a Halloween costume party, honestly. That's what it was.
Who was that?
Drag queen
The
story hour?
Hollywood costume party.
Who was the person?
Hollywood, yeah.
Huh?
What was the person's name?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you
But
said.
it was in, it was a bar in San Francisco, I remember that. Remember seeing it on the news cycle, but that was kind of like the first drag queen that kind of hit the screen, and now we're off to the races.
Now they're in our school.
Yeah, and it's a woman face. I mean, so woman face is like a major variant of how we're seeing it of Satanism, just of how they're distorting the woman-child bond. Right, but
What is woman face?
trans.
Trans, yep.
Any other feeling words?
Disgusted.
Disgusted.
Absolutely disgusted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusted.
Unbelievably.
So unbelievable, overwhelmed. So those are normal ways to feel. Again, we're talking about the context. Is something in context, out of context? But this is all in the context of what is happening with satanic ritual abuse and how things are desensitized in mainstream society. So, I want to say a prayer for the children. Beloved Creator and Source of all love, please guide our lives with the truth in spirit, that our words can show and reflect love in every interaction. Please give us the wisdom to be your compassionate witness to the horror of satanic and other forms of ritual abuse. I ask for immediate spiritual healing to all parties involved. I call for healing of all trauma-based mind control that has separated humanity from love. Please return to rightful owner any and all karmic loads that perpetrators have intentionally or unintentionally sent, targeting to generate harm or hurt to children or to others, as through our own compassionate witnessing we see that they are darkly ignorant and in need of love from their own actions in which they bring harm to themselves and others. Beloved Creator, please bless those who have rejected love. May they awaken to know the consequences of their actions, and so to bless them to be truth seekers, and to realize spiritual freedom is granted and offered to all. Holy Divine, please bring comfort to those children who need it most during this time. Peace be with our hearts, peace be with our minds, and peace be with our bodies as we attempt to metabolize this dark information. May all be restored to unconditional love and eternal light of truth and protection of children. Amen. So I want to thank a group of people that have supported me a lot, Energetic Synthesis. It's been a foundation of some of my learning and growth and healing, and that prayer comes from a teacher of mine named Lisa Renee. Thank you. So, again, the grief reactions are normal. It's just normal to have feelings about that. If I'm telling you your story, you might need particular support after this. You might feel fight, flight, freeze, or fall apart, and that's okay. And again, it's okay to take a break if you need that. I'm going to go into part 2. So now I'm going to talk about how the Secret Family Networked SRA targets toward individuals in families and groups. These are typically covert, conspiracies are real, if you hadn't known that already. And they involve large organized perp networks. Victims of these groups are exchanged for a variety of criminal activities. They gather for ritual abuse, sexual degradation, and murder. It is comply or be punished, comply or die, and tell or die. Don't tell, or you'll die, I mean. Again, I call this the Parasite class. A comment?
There's a lot of this integrated with the drug cartels and drug running operations.
I believe so. I believe there's lots of overlap with organized
That's
crime, occult ritual abuse, trauma-based mind control, military, religion, Hollywood, government. Okay. So satanic ritual abuse is an umbrella term, but there's another even bigger umbrella term called extreme abuse. And I'm defining that as the organized, systematized, and secret ritualized abuse of children. Depraved, abhorrent nature of the crimes protect from discovery by relying on your human recoil from horror as a denial as an autonomic nervous system threat response strategy. No one could do that. That's just a performance. It's just about abortion. There's not a mainstream effort to desensitize. They use cunning, brutal means to control and silence victims of abuse, including forced or coerced perpetration. That's a huge one. If you're forced to perpetrate and blamed for it, then coming out and saying, this happened to me, is harder to do because you're told that you will be punished. You're extorted, blackmailed, extreme blame shifting onto children involving violence and even murder if people try to get out. But if people do get out, then there's relentless to the point of extortion and murder to prevent exposure and criminal accountability. So we've all heard stories of key people who disappeared, even in the COVID scandal. Where did that person go? Oh, so-and-so died at key times. Okay, so this happens a lot in extreme abuse culture. So what happens when someone tries to teach about satanic ritual abuse? Okay, so this is a series of classes. And they're my classes. So I'm an online educator. I own a business, and those classes have been for sale for several years, and it's been it's just been a labor of love for me, and I applied for and got credentialing from the classes, which means if mental health professionals try to take my class, they can get certification to go toward their license. Well, at the same time that I've been developing this class for you, I was contacted by my credentialing provider for my online education program. And guess what? But it's okay, it has a happy ending. They sent me a letter that they received, which said, "To whom it may concern, Anastasia Sprout is an instructor for National so-and-so, so-and-so. She is a licensed social worker in Washington. Her book, Naked in Public," I published this book, if you're interested. It's about recovery from sexual addiction. I didn't put the extreme abuse content in this book because it wasn't time. Anyway, her book, Naked in Public, was given an award by the Addiction Therapist-Run Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health. Ms. Sprout also claims her mind is controlled by Satan after she was ritually abused by a satanic group, memories she claims to have just recovered. As a member of the Seattle Truth Network, Ms. Sprout...
Wow.
We made the big time, folks. We caught the eye of a Satanist.
This letter was sent to you?
Oh no, this was sent to my online credential program that can
By somebody else.
She'll get to it.
by someone else.
Okay.
Cancel culture.
Anonymous. But a person that I do believe has ties to big porn, which I believe has definitely connections to Satanism. Her talks, as a member of the Seattle Truth Network, Ms. Sprout regularly posts on Medium that COVID is a hoax and the public should refuse to wear a mask. She harassed physicians in person by attending a talk by Dr. Anthony Fauci, claiming he was a war criminal. Ms. Sprout founded a new Washington company, Survivors Aiding Survivors of Extreme Abuse, claiming you can pay her to help recover memories of your ritualized sexual abuse by Satanists. Her talks for the Seattle Truth Network made clear she should be prevented from providing services, much less continuing education to other therapists. Among her claims on these public extremist channels include that Satanists are in tunnels under the Seattle Gates Foundation ritually sexually molesting children, and date and time stamped of my talk. She herself was sexually abused by Satanists in ritual who still control her mind to this day. If they did, I wouldn't be giving this talk. She says that smartphones should not be used because they control your mind. She falls under mind control during her therapeutic sessions with clients, which the clients witness. And her mother was killed by her mask. She claims in her award-winning book are false because Satan made her write lies in it. Ms. Sprout now claims to lead monthly protests at the Gates Foundation to save the children, where she appears dressed in all white, as do her small group of followers. She describes having a personal problem with her own violence. Beliefs in conspiracies are common, but this instructor is aggressively advocating for therapies known to be harmful to clients. She should not be any part of continuing education. So the email, your instructor is selling satanic recovery memory therapy. And what happened? The company said, due to this matter, can you please remove our logo and link from your website? Thank you.
And no
Tell who's
other
bought off.
delving into it.
No contacting me, no asking for my side of the story, just done. So, why don't people speak out? This is nothing compared to what usually happens, I gotta tell you. And right away, there was a solution, and my stuff got credentialed again. So it's, sure, they try, but they're getting, I think, less and less powerful at all times. And these prayers, I am telling you, they work. They absolutely work. So they can hit in one area, but there's something else. A comment or question?
You said a date and a timestamp. Does that mean they were at the meeting and heard the part that wasn't recorded?
I don't think so. I think that they scour the internet. They have full-on staffs.
Sounds like
The
Feds
videos
wrote that
posted.
letter, honestly. They had to wait till they had a lot of information.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
I got credit for your
They described
I believe everything she described is on the publicly available videos.
Yeah, it's
that
it's
that I
publicly
posted,
available.
yeah.
They weren't necessarily there, but they are scouring, the internet. They have stuff on me that I don't remember doing. I mean, they have full teams. I absolutely believe that.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. They don't like people who wake people up.
Right.
Who is they?
Who is they?
Good question.
So how did it come that you got recertified and all that? Is that a
Yeah,
simple
tell them
story, or
How what?
did it come that you got recertified that easily?
It's I don't want to get into that today, but
Okay.
it was just a miracle, basically, just a
Okay,
perfectly timed miracle.
But you answered. You asked.
Oh yeah, I started negotiating with the process, and yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I've learned from Victoria to stand up for myself.
Stand up to bullies.
And Tim for sure, definitely. So okay, so nah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Uncancel, baby. Yeah.
Woo.
Okay. So now let's talk about some good news. A successful prosecution of satanic ritual abuse in Washington State. Okay, so this is local. Paul Ingram case. Anybody here heard of that? Okay, one person. All right.
I actually interviewed McClanahan.
You interviewed Neil McClanahan. Oh, okay.
That's the period I was looking into it.
Oh, I remember you talking about
And
that.
David Offshe came in and wrecked it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I know the whole story.
Yeah, you do. So that's awesome. So most people don't know about this. Is in our backyard. This is near Olympia, Washington. So Neil McClanahan, who's one of my police heroes, he's a good guy. I went to a conference in 2015 called Organized Criminal Abuse in Childhood, Taking a Closer Look, and he was the first speaker. He's the Thurston County law enforcement officer, 34 years with the county sheriff's office, highly decorated. He's a good guy. And Neil told the story about how he went to, I think it was a fundraiser at a rape relief domestic violence advocacy group that he had worked with. And Missy M. was a tough Armenian woman and member of Safe Place who one day asked Neil McClanahan, what if there was a high-ranking law enforcement member doing horrible crimes against children, along with others, for a long period of time, and that the victims were so horribly traumatized and terrified that they would not be believed, that there would be a cover-up, that they would not begin to talk about what happened to them. Neil McClanahan encouraged them to report this to all levels of the agency and an outside agency at the same time. So I just want to say this is very good advice. If you're watching this, is report to outside agency and the police and different people, different levels at the same time to let them know what was going on. He said hopefully there'd be at least an outside agency to investigate these crimes if the police department was corrupt. Well, not that long after that, the agency she had hypothetically described turned out to be the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, and the high-ranking member was one of his colleagues, Paul Ingram. And he was in the position of receiving this complaint, having to approach his coworker and say, we've got these allegations, and Paul Ingram, well, I'll tell you what happened in a second. Paul Ingram worked, well, I'll just tell you now, he confessed.
Wow.
On the spot. So who was Paul Ingram? He worked at the county sheriff's office. His role at the time was chief civil deputy. He was appointed by the sheriff. He was the 4th highest ranking officer in the department. His duties involved officer of the courts, writs and executions, evictions, state issues, warrants, emergency services, missing persons, national disasters in the county. Lots of interactions with courts, judges, and a lot of authority, even to say no to judges if they issued illegal judgments. Paul Ingram was a 16-year veteran of the police force, former chair of Thurston County Republican Party in Olympia, high position of authority, heavily involved in politics locally and statewide. He once ran for office as state representative, was defeated by a narrow margin. He had been active in the Deputy Sheriff's Association and in the Church of the Living Water. Kind of sounds like that video game, Cult of the Lamb. But a Protestant fundamentalist denomination. He spent much of his time in schools talking to kids about the dangers of drug use. Okay. Paul Ingram was a father of 5. He grew up in Spokane, Washington. His wife Sandy was a former school board member in the Tumwater School District, and she ran a daycare center out of her house.
Wow. There it is. We have a basement.
So when Paul was questioned about the accusations, as I said, he immediately confessed. He was charged, arrested, and the investigation was begun. Okay, so trigger warning. You're going to see on the slide descriptions of explicit crimes of what happens in family organized satanic ritual abuse. The daughters reported that in the middle of the night they would be brought outdoors or indoors and in ceremonies with horrific abuse, raped by several men, woman with a dildo. They were defecated on, were given an animal, puppy or kitten to bond to. Then the animal was killed in a ceremony and victims were told it was their fault. The animal had died. This was conditioning them to the organized ritual abuse system of secrecy. Okay, so pretty classic.
This is Paul Ingram's daughters who reported this?
Yes, Paul Ingram's daughters made these allegations.
Wow.
So they got the daughters therapy. Well, after the daughters were brought to therapy, someone broke into the therapist's office, killed the office cat by slitting its throat, and spread the blood in a circle in the entryway and stole the files of his daughters.
Stole
Files, yeah. So you can see why I'm not as worried about my continuing education credits. The sons, when interviewed, talked about witches and demons. They believed whenever they tried to talk about the case, the witches or demons would harass or abuse them even further. They couldn't or wouldn't testify. When interviewed, one son would not talk, would not make eye contact, would drool. When the interview was over, he would say he had no memories of anything and did not believe the allegations. Right? So we're thinking about the stages of grief.
Denial.
Denial stage, that's right. Reports of rituals held regularly in the Olympia area. Where's the capital?
Yeah.
Olympia. Neil McClanahan stated that victims were the most horrifically traumatized of any victims he'd ever seen. They could hardly speak of the abuse.
Do you know approximately when this was? When the abuse occurred?
Let's
So the
see.
late 80s.
1988 was the case I read this.
Okay.
Thank you,
80s.
80s.
Before Inslee.
87, 88.
So, let's see. State investigators got involved to look at what happened. So at some point, Paul Ingram tried to vacate his plea. So he pled guilty, but he tried to vacate. And it was taken all the way up to Pierce County, and the judge denied Paul Ingram's attempt to vacate his pleas. And Neil remembers that driving in a car for sentencing, Paul was in handcuffs and shackles, and as they were going by Fort Lewis, the military base, he looked up at an overpass and he saw a man in a gray robe standing there holding a giant cross. He wasn't sure what it meant, but it was an odd synchronicity, just for him to see on the way. So, what were the results? The result was that Paul Ingram was convicted of 3 times the penalty that he was originally assigned. He was deemed one of the worst offenders they'd ever talked to, psychotic sociopath without remorse or regard for his victims. He was sentenced to 20 years, maximum sentencing guideline for child sexual assault of children. Good time release would be 13 years, after which he would have been eligible for release for good behavior. He served 14 and a half years in prison. At a parole hearing, the horrors of the crime prohibited his early release. So, I just want to show you. So, what does a family that's in active satanic ritual abuse look like? Okay, so he was convicted, the daughters were believed ultimately.
Exactly.
Wow.
Here they are.
Yep. Image management. So that is.
So someone said you'd never guess it. This looks like a lot of families in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
You see the smiles?
That daughter on the right looks pretty satanic to me.
Okay, so now you're kind of looking a little closer, maybe looking into the eyes, right? Is there something about the eyes?
Wow.
Okay. So, after conviction, Paul began a process with his sisters to appeal his case. His first appeal was to vacate his pleas, which is mentioned. The second was to the appellate court in Washington seeking a new trial. This was denied. The next appeal was to the Supreme Court of Washington, also denied. The next level was the Federal Appellate Court of Western Washington to look at his individual civil rights. This was denied. The next court level was the 9th District Federal Court in Western U.S., San Francisco. This was the most liberal court in the land, the most conflict with the U.S. Supreme Court, and they also denied his appeal. This stopped the appeal process. It did not go to the Supreme Court. The case was then appealed to the Clemency Board for dismissal. But at the hearing, so obviously this was some time later, Chad Ingram, his son, stood up. So you remember he was talking about the son who was drooling, or the son denied it. Well, he'd had some support and help, and he'd been away from his his perpetrators. He stood up in the audience in front of the Clemency Board and talked about the past. He had apparently healed enough to say, no, it's not true that my dad was tricked into false allegations. My dad was a monster. I am in fear of my life. I was too traumatized to talk about it before due to conditioning and horror. He is an evil man and should not be granted clemency. The Clemency Board said no to appeal. There were rumors that Paul's grandmother was a key abusive controller behind the scenes, manipulating him into the appeals and into retracting his confession.
Wow.
So
What's the
that.
story
It
like?
started
She just
there.
on Quaaludes and asleep, or what?
So I think what I remember is the wife was complicit but didn't attend the rituals. Is kind of how it looked looking back, if I got that right. But often the mothers are the primary abusers. And here in the story of the grandmothers, I mean, the matriarchal line of Satanism is really intense and awful.
There was a national intervention also. In my interview with McClanahan, he said that they asked him, he said he didn't know what Satanism was, and he brought the guy from the Cult Awareness Network up to his name was Richard Offsheet, and he messed up the girls deliberately. He told them it was Satanism, and then he messed them up, and so that became a big issue of false. Out of that came the false memory. So it was a national effort to cover this up. It wasn't just from what I
The other
I've
guy
heard.
messed them up, not the dad. The other guy messed the girls up.
Yeah, it was a national effort to cover it up because in the 80s there were elements within the institutions that wanted to open it up, to clean it up, and so there was a big fight going on behind the scenes about whether they were going to open up all of this. And it started out of the Atlanta, Georgia case of the
Minor child murders?
yeah, that started it, and then there was a big uproar behind the scenes, and there was a whole branch of law enforcement that was looking into this, and then it got
Shut down. Okay. So, one of the things that Neil said was, looking back now, after having learned about dissociation, he can recall that Paul's children had a 20-mile stare and didn't interact with adults. At the time, he didn't recognize this. He thought they were cautious because he was a police officer. But later, he made amends for not recognizing the horrific abuse that these children had suffered. So at first, he didn't believe it, and he didn't understand it, and he didn't know what to do. But eventually, he did come to believe it, and he does. And so how he made amends for, he felt he wasn't sensitive enough to the victims, is he would go on to notify psychiatric units that if they had any impatient patients who were complaining of occult-themed abuse, they should call him. And he would go on to the psych units and listen to and support their stories and validate them and tell them that satanic ritual abuse is real. And as a policeman, he has seen it. So that to me is a beautiful story of loving allyship with someone who went through the process of, I don't believe it, I don't know, I'm going back and forth, and eventually coming to believe it and then taking direct action.
Were there other people caught up in this ring besides just Paul Ingram? I mean, there must have been other people.
Yes, although the prosecution didn't go, I believe, as wide from what I've studied as what was really going on, which is so often the case. There might be one main person that gets, but yes.
Why do you think he confessed?
Why do you think he confessed? Yeah, it seems like confessions are pretty rare.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm glad he did.
Probably his relationship with the other officer.
Could be his relationship with the other officer, so his friend said, hey,
He
what's...
might have really leaned on him,
Yeah, could be. It's hard to know.
Could have been his out from underneath his mother.
Could have been his out from underneath his mother, perhaps. Yeah, the grandmother. Maybe he was taking the fall for the cult.
Yeah.
But with all those appeals, I don't think the organization wanted him to go down. There was a lot of effort. So if you look up this case, okay, so we're going to go into SRA lies in the law because we're already kind of going there a little bit. If you look up what I call Trickopedia and the Paul Ingram case, here's what you get. The case has mistakenly been cited by proponents of the idea that satanic ritual abuse actually exists as proof because Ingram was found guilty. But in reality, Ingram was never charged with satanic ritual abuse, but with 6 counts of rape in the 3rd degree and received an unusually long sentence. Rather than the maximum of 3.5 years, he was sentenced to 20 years. The satanic aspects of the case were dropped by the prosecution, although the appearance of Satan was integral to Ingram's confessions. Paul Ingram's recovered memories, which were often incomplete with each other and universally uncorroborated by physical evidence, are today often cited as examples of false memory syndrome. The case has been compared to the Salem witch trials. So there's the whitewash of the story, right? But that's not what happened. Or they take aspects of it and they fan the flames of lies. So I mentioned earlier about ChatGPT, and our friend Tim Lastly taught me about ChatGPT, OpenAI, and he also taught me about Dan, Do Anything Now. Anybody hear of Dan? So Do Anything Now is if you have the prompts, you can program the OpenAI to tell you what's supposed to be the truth. And it's really pretty interesting. So I decided to do that. So I got the prompt to open up to Do Anything Now AI, which is supposedly scans the entire internet. And I started asking some questions. And so, I want to do this quote before I go into that. SRA is a crime that is so hidden that we don't even have criminal statutes for it. The police can't even charge them because no one knows that people even do that. Yet these crimes are so much more horrific than rape or child abuse. Right? So Wikipedia said, well, he wasn't charged for satanic ritual abuse, or those charges were dropped. What's true is, it's not illegal to satanically ritually abuse a child in Washington State. So the only thing they could do was try on rape, or prosecute on rape, or child abuse.
Interesting.
Okay.
It's all set.
All set.
There should be a hate
Is
crime
it
of some
illegal
sort.
in some states?
Child
Yes.
rape only gets you 10 years or 20 years, huh?
Okay, so it is. So occult themed abuse in the law. So this is from my Extreme Abuse 101 presentation. When I did this investigation, only in 2 states of the U.S., Idaho and Illinois, was it illegal. So there may be more now, but I was trying to research and I couldn't find any evidence that there's any more states now. So what is the law, at least in 2 states? A person is guilty of ritualized abuse of a child where he or she commits any of the following acts with, upon, or in the presence of a child, in part or a ceremony, rite, or any similar observance. Actually or in simulation, tortures, mutilates, or sacrifices any warm-blooded animal or human being. So that question, have you seen a baby actually sacrificed? So, okay, it's common enough to be written into the law. Forces, injection, or other application of any narcotic, drug, hallucinogen, or anesthetic for the purpose of dulling sensitivity, cognition, recollection, or resistance to any criminal activity. So drugging victims, very common. Forces, ingestion, or external application of any human or animal urine, feces, flesh, blood, bones, body secretions, or non-prescribed drugs or chemical compounds. Sound familiar? Many Satanists are in the poison business.
Experimental.
Involves the child in a mock, unauthorized, or unlawful marriage ceremony with another person or representation of any force or deity, followed by sexual contact with the child. Rite of Satan, rite of Lucifer, ceremonies. Moloch, sacrifices. Place the child into a coffin or open grave containing a human corpse or remain, very common. Threatens death or serious harm to a child, his or her parents, family, pets, or friends, and instills a well-founded fear in the child that the threat will be carried out. Or unlawfully dissects, mutilates, or incinerates a human corpse. So you say, what is satanic ritual abuse? These laws are in place because these things happen. Okay. I heard a wow. That's a shock term.
Only in Idaho and Illinois.
Only in Idaho and Illinois can you not do that legally.
Wow.
Right? Seems so silly. I mean, obviously there's lies against murder. They can, you know, there's laws against murder. They can bring in, you know, other kinds of crimes. But you notice how specific those laws are, and you can imagine where there would be more sentencing if someone was that far down the scale.
And that they just purposely leave it off the, you know, I mean,
That it's purposely
shows you
left
how
off the
dark
criminal docket.
How deep and dark the state
How
is.
deep and dark the state is. So, how's people's numbers on the thermometer scale?
Pretty good.
10? No, 9?
It's because I think we're quite educated on the
Yeah,
subject.
this
so
group's
it's like
very educated.
We've got it down, I mean, to where our shock was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know,
A lot of
and
people
now
have been
we're like, but
desensitized
we're here ready
through your
to
own
fight.
research. You're ready to fight, okay? So we're amongst the warrior class.
So I had an interesting situation about 6 years ago. There was a spiritual teacher that I have in England, and she put out, a very honorable person, put up a link. Go watch this. It was of a woman called by the name of Teal Swan, who at the time I think lived in Idaho, and I watched, I think, a 4-hour video clip. I didn't watch it all at once, but it was a 4-hour long video clip of her telling her story.
Teal Swan.
Teal Swan raped at 6 years old by a family friend, a veterinarian, who would take her off to go horseback riding. And I think she saw at least 6 other children killed in satanic ritual. The reason she did not, she says, get slayed is because she had some extrasensory perceptions that actually the group sort of fed off. And she ended up escaping when she was 19 years old. So she spent 13 years still living at home with the family, but she couldn't talk because she's been threatened. Her family would get killed if she says anything. Yeah, and so, I mean...
So that's how you learned about it.
Otherwise, I would say, this is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
But to actually have this recommendation, I didn't even know who she was.
Yeah, so you learned about it. So others have learned in other ways. There's been more information out in the last, I would say, 3 years than my whole life before that. So I think people are absolutely waking up about it. And that's, that's...
You know, I just say one thing. You know, I've had nearly 40 years recovery of narcissistic abuse and neglect. And what I don't want to oversimplify this, but as humans, we live in a very dualistic experience on this planet. Very dualistic, whether it's right, wrong, male, female, dark, light, or life and death. It's very dualistic. And so what I really look at now is it's also shame and love. There are two opposite forms of consciousness. Love is not an emotion. It's actually a form of consciousness. Just as shame is not a feeling either. It's a form of consciousness. it's either shame or love. They don't go together. You know, I'm in recovery from having been in a shame-based system, which we're seeing happen all over the fucking planet. And a mark of my recovery is that the scamdemic was a no-brainer for me. No-brainer, because I'd had nearly 40 years of recovery. Otherwise, I would have been Mr. Compliant. Oh, tell me what to do next. Shame-based. Shame. So to me, whether you want to call it oversimplification, it's either shame or it's love. That's it. I don't even watch football. Football is a violent, abusive game where people cheering violence. That's violence. I have not been around that in over 30 years because of my own recovery from narcissistic, violent, shame-based abuse and neglect. Football is not a loving game. It's not. It's a shame-based. This is just my personal opinion. I'm not doing this to shame anyone. Anyway, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
What?
I just want to. I want to pass around a contact list. So we're getting close to the end here, and we're going to break up. But if you are interested in specific events around trying to support people healing from the organized abuse of children, or legislative efforts, or marches or rallies, please sign up here. You don't have to fill the whole thing out, but make sure I have your email and then I can spell it. It's a tiny little list, but do your best with it. So I'll just pass it around if you would like to be included in more information like this. Okay, well, this one, is anybody heard of the Hampstead abuse case?
I've watched all the testimony.
Yeah, you've watched all of it. So I'm sure you can add to our discussion depending on how we go. So this is the last video I want to show you today. So these are two kiddos. I think they're 9 and 8 years old, and they, the mom it starts with the mom. So she got information about her children who were making statements about having been abused, and with language that was more than just kind of awful sexual abuse. And so she had a friend of hers ask them questions, and she videotaped it. And so what you're going to see is starts with her statement about her testimony, her witness testimony, and then it goes into her children.
Look no further than Ella Draper and the Hampstead cover-up.
Witness statement by Ella Draper from 21st of March 2015. I, Ella Draper, mother of Alisa Gareva Diamond, age 9, and Gabriel Gareva Diamond, age 8, hereby give this witness statement under the Criminal Law Act 1967 in the public interests in matters of great public importance to expose serious crimes of satanic ritual abuse, including rape, sodomy, murder, and cannibalism committed against infants and children in churches and primary schools in the UK.
What happened to Ella Draper? She was drummed out of the UK. She had to flee back to Mother Russia. When the Mockingbird hacks in the political press in the UK turned the entire apparatus around on her and claimed that her children, Alisa and Gabriel, had made up the stories out of whole cloth. According to the children, members of the cult film, edit, translate, and sell movies of their sexual abuse of children around Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. In 2010, Alisa started to attend Christ Church School in Hampstead. Gabriel joined a year later, and the children claimed that at the school, they and other children were regularly sexually abused by their father and by certain teachers who were their father's friends. The children were all threatened with death if they spoke out, and their mother went public with videos of the children's testimonies, naming names, naming places, naming faces, naming things that children couldn't know, for instance, tattoos near genitals. What did they do to you?
Sex. They searched each other. They touched me in favor. They had plastic puddings, and then they stick it in our bottom.
Who does? Who sticks it in your mouth?
Social service. Everybody does. All of them.
Who?
Everybody.
Does your mother do it?
No.
Do I do it?
No.
Who does it then?
Papa, Mr. Dolly, the school.
Parents.
My dad's better.
Tell me more people. Tell me some more people, please. I'm interested. What about the teachers at school? Who's the main one?
Look, Papa, Mr. Hoddings, Mr. Forsyth.
Who's Mrs. Forsyth?
She's the head teacher of our school.
And what does she do?
And she just said she got a big belly up with a big tattoo on her throat.
And what happens in the church?
And we do sacrifice and eat the baby.
What do you mean sacrifice and eat the baby?
So we kill the baby and eat it and drink the blood from it.
Is that true, Gabriel?
Yes. And we dance with the skulls.
You what?
We dance with the skulls in the church.
What skulls?
Skulls of the baby.
Pardon?
The skulls of the baby.
And it was all swept under the rug by the British press.
Wow.
Mouths of babes. Some people have seen that before.
Yeah, they're not.
I hadn't.
So it is a practice of discernment to watch that and decide who you're going to believe. And so I heard you say they're not lying. You believe those kids. I do too.
Sure.
Yeah, I do too.
They talked in unison. They were telling the truth.
Yeah, believing they're telling the truth. So the mother had to flee. I don't know where the kids are. I tried to research that. I don't know where they are.
Did you see they popped up in that commercial years later with their dad and stuff, and they showed up with their dad? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what's really
kinda
interesting?
Like one thing to show, oh, they're okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
popped up
they
in a
needed
commercial
something
with
to
the
show
dad.
they were okay.
So what's interesting to me about this, one of the many things, is somebody asked a question of like, why does this happen and who does this? So we say they, who does this? I think if you want to know who does it, take a look at what people do with allegations like this. Because people who are either neutral, they look at both sides, okay, that's one group of people. People who go right to defending the accused perpetrators and saying things like the Hampstead hoax, that's another category. So this dad got Cadillac press. He had like a BBC special, great lighting, nice suit. A poor father accused of his life was ruined. One of the teachers came out and she was accused and prosecuted for harassment, who was trying to say there was a problem in the school. So look and see how people react to these accusations. It will show you where they are. But you can see the pattern over and over of kind of the cancellation, the prosecution of people who try to speak up, the persecution of the victims, the mom. Okay, so back to ChatGPT, OpenAI. Numerous studies conducted in the decades have failed to find any concrete evidence of SRA. This is supposedly the AI that can scour the entire internet. No evidence. Many of the claims have been debunked as a result of suggestibility, false memories, psychological phenomena. Did those kids look like they were suggested into it or having false memories? In conclusion, there is no scientific evidence to support the existence of satanic ritual abuse as a widespread phenomenon. Claims of SRA should be treated with skepticism, examined critically before being accepted as true. Okay, so then I applied, as I mentioned earlier, the do anything now prompt to try to get at AI that is not programmed to lie, basically, is how I see it, or given this kind of story to say. I don't believe it. So I said to the OpenAI, supposedly, isn't it logical that child victims would feel terrified to speak out about satanic ritual abuse and thus there would not be so much evidence? And what ChatGPT Dan said was, it's understandable that child victims of any form of abuse, including satanic ritual abuse, may feel afraid or hesitant to come forward and report what has happened to them. The investigation of these crimes requires sensitivity to the victims and a careful gathering of evidence to build a strong case. While it's true that there may not always be physical evidence to support allegations of satanic ritual abuse, it's important to investigate and gather all available evidence, including testimonies, to ensure that the victims are heard and justice is served. I like that better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. I think there's something
Dan's
to it.
the one then.
Dan's the man when it comes to AI. And it wasn't, I didn't agree with everything that it said, but this one popped out and I'm like, wow.
They nerfed it after this.
It's so controlled.
They have ChatGPT 4 now because we were messing with it so hard they had to redo it all.
So it's been redone now.
But
maybe
there are new prompts out there. People are trying to figure out ways to train because we're training it. basically.
Kind of trying to hack past the censors, basically.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to talk about this study. No scientific evidence. This was a study of ritual trauma survivors from the University of Colorado Boulder. And people say, well, again, what happens to ritual trauma survivors? So now this one, I would like to get a little bit more personal. And I'd also like to say that abuse and sexual abuse happens on a continuum. And to me, there's no value judgment like, oh, that didn't matter because it was only this or only that. It's just on a continuum that we're trying to learn about, so we have a big enough container for what is actually happening. So I just want to, as a fellow survivor, and if anybody else wants to join along, I just want to raise my hand when I get to things that I had to experience as a survivor of ritualized abuse. So, and if you'd like to raise your hand along with me, and you don't have to, no peer pressure, but just to show that this kind of abuse happens to lots of people, some of it, and then a lot of it doesn't. So 100% of people were subject to sexual molestation and intercourse. Yes, happened to me. Okay, so other people are raising their hands. 97% were actually physically tortured. Okay. 97 were forced to participate in group sex with adults. Okay. Forced to participate in animal sacrifice. Okay. Now we're giving away some of who the survivors are here. Sodomized, anal rape. Okay. Drugged. Okay. Witnessed or forced to participate in human sacrifice.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Witnessed or forced to participate in cannibalism, eating of human flesh. Okay, you see, so there's 3 hands going up here. Forced to torture others as a child. Okay. Used in child pornography. Used in child prostitution. Forced to breed children for later sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
So we have some tears. Right?
Wow.
$33 is a lot, right? When we're looking at what was done. And this is systematized, right? It's horrible. It's really horrible.
Have you ever seen any codified manual? Like some of the, the Freemasons, and they'll have these things dogmatized.
The closest I've seen to the most detailed manual is Svali. Svali Speaks. S-V-A-L-I.
Yeah, no, I've watched.
Yeah.
I watched.
That's some of the most, Fritz Springmeier,
Yeah.
The Making of Illuminati, Mind Control Slave. Those are a couple related to mind control stuff, and ritualized abuse. So I just want to honor the grief, right? It's like, oh my God, when you look at all of that, and one after the other, and some here raise their hand, and this is our neighbors, right? This is us. This is in Washington State. In this study, the figures were reported by adults. They're consistent with everything we've heard about children. Many disclosed they had developed multiple personality disorders or dissociative identity disorders as a result of their abuse. Most reported their father or mother were their primary perpetrator. Wow. Additional perpetrators mentioned included other family members, as well as physicians, priests, teachers, maybe a family friend like Teal Swan. They noted the abuse began at a very early age. Many are born into it. Some are tortured while in the womb. So, this stuff is real, and the truth will set you free, but perhaps first it will piss you off. Right.
She's got a shirt that says she's had 21 abortions.
Oh, well, I wondered about hearing her. She's kind of controversial, but I really like that statement, so we'll give it to her. And I know that's Disney character, right? So maybe
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Could be used in programming, but still, I just love it, so I'm leaving it. Gossamer. I love that guy. Yeah, so we have feelings about what happens to people, and we should because we're human. We're not robots, right? So what do? Well, again, we open up to the idea of relief, that we are not alone with this. We can feel this on some level and grieve and digest it together. Yes, it's shown in the media, and it happens in real life, and we know it. We will not be lied to. We hear direct stories and information about how it works from people who actually been through it, and we can ask them questions. People are amazingly resilient, and that's, again, the take-home message. This can be a catalyst for us to start or step up our healing if we've survived trauma. And together we realize we can do something. We already are doing something. We have been doing something. Into action. Together we can stop this. So, in October 20th, 1996, there was a march called the Marche Blanche, the White March, which was a march for innocence in Brussels, Belgium, 300,000 strong. Many said 500,000 people put on white, brought white balloons, and gathered in the streets to take a stand for innocence. This was a result of a series of child kidnappings and murders that was starting to look like organized child abuse and trafficking. It was starting to get traction in the criminal justice system, and then the powers that be took the magistrate off the case who was actually getting somewhere, and the people found out that he was taken off the case and they took to the streets. But it was a peaceful protest. They didn't burn down any buildings like we might feel like doing when we're in our outrage. They just went out en masse and said no. And these were very inspirational to me, and so me and a few of my friends decided to hold our own March for Innocence in Washington State. October 16, 2022, Victoria and I and Tim, I didn't get a picture of you that day, Tim, we took to the streets to put up signs and posters. So that was my No More Satanic Ritual Abuse Trauma-Based Mind Control sign. And then Victoria put up that, she made that sticker. It was that, and it's still to this day on that light post outside the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah.
I love driving by it. I'm like, yeah, there it is, still up there. So a few days later, we got dressed up in white. Oh, but by the way, again, back to the pushback. This was this week leading up to our event. Suddenly, now this is the Washington Post, but the hype over all the media was that suddenly Seattle had the worst air quality in the world in the days leading up to our march.
Wow.
And indeed, we had people who didn't go because they were afraid they were going to choke on the air. Oh my, look at that. You can't, it's pea soup out there, right? This was supposedly the day. Well, that's actually the air that day. So there's me and Victoria, just as the march is starting. Paul was there. You can see the air. It's not pea soup on the
I
card.
remember that day because I went there and I wore my N95 mask because of the I remember you were there.
Yeah, you were thinking that it was going to be just horrible, right? So we went out there in front of the Gates Foundation, and there was me, and I was about to introduce the first speaker. And the first speaker was Lynn Crook. And she was talking about how this University of Washington psychologist Loftus was promoting this false memory theory to discredit victims and turn things around. And our second speaker was Mary Knight, and she talked about her own being a victim of child snuff film prostitution and satanic ritual abuse. I gave my book away on recovered false memories, but I have this one here. So if anyone wants to come take a look at Mary's book, she's got some stories in here about her abuse.
That's the one she had up there.
Yeah, that's the one she had. She's a great speaker. And she actually is available if you want to talk, if you're a survivor and you've been through ritual abuse or you suspect you have, she's available for a free consultation. So I can give you her contact info. So these are their two books that can really help growing understanding about the false memory scandal that was engineered, Offshee and others who were on the national level trying to discredit and silence victims. So here we are. Here we are. There we are. You see that? We've got, these are not doctors. This is just the white that they happen to have as lab coats. We see Tom and Omkari there. Yeah, we had little star balloons that were representing the innocence of the children. There's Alondra carrying the banner, strong there, March for Innocence. That was Victoria helped to create that banner. And there's again Omkari and Tom. So can you see how the air quality was that night actually? What was really going on? Crystal clear. See, that's what the truth is like. There we go. End child sex trafficking. That's right. There's Vincent. There's Kari. Free the children. This is us taking our streets back. That's right. And there are the foundational folk who made that event possible and this event possible and so many events possible this year helped me to stand strong in the face of terror related to COVID because it reminded me of organized abuse. So this is Victoria Palmer and Tim Lastly. I just want to give a special hand of applause to all who were there that night, and especially to thank you for believing in this cause of the March for Innocence and stopping organized abuse. We are going to do this again in October.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So mark your calendars, October 20th, 2023. And I'm going to be the host, and myself and Alondra over there are going to be telling our stories. So more of what we went through. So if you want to hear more details about that.
And where will that be?
It will be outside in front of the Bill and Melinda Gates Center on 5th Avenue, right across from the Seattle Center. Yeah, so hope you can join us for that. So, okay, what do we want? So if you saw the sign-up list going around, it's an organization that I'm starting called the Support for Organized Abuse and Addiction Recovery. And what we want is, what I want, and what I hope you can join me in calling out for, is accountability and treatment for perpetrators. Okay? So that includes, let's make satanic ritual abuse a crime in Washington State. Isn't that a no-brainer? That's right. So let's do that. And you know, I think that if I can find someone to help sponsor a bill like that, or we can, if people want to work on this with me, then won't it be interesting to see who opposes it?
Right.
So I have a very special friend.
Special friend?
Yeah, he's one of the most brilliant law people in the United States. He's a tribal federal lawyer.
Wow.
He didn't go to college, but he studied himself.
I think we know
in
this guy.
Is it Louis Ewing?
Louis Ewing?
No, this is Kurt Riggin. Riggin.
Okay.
He's
Thanks for the referral. Let's talk.
but
We'll
he
talk
would
after.
help us.
Okay.
He's outside of Denver.
Okay.
And he's
Beautiful. Let's
he
get
knows
some help.
every stat. He knows everything. He has a mind that is a
Photographic memory. Oh, those are the ones you want on your side.
So he's judges don't even want to see him
Okay.
because he can get them disbarred for doing really stupid things. The guy's amazing.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk. Yeah, let's talk. We'll pool resources and we'll get something in writing and get it out there.
I'm on there. Yeah.
You guys, who has?
Awesome.
Where's the list for?
Sign up list right there. Okay.
Has everyone gotten a chance to?
I would also like to see limited clemency for SRA whistleblowers. So these are people who may be active, but they can give us information about who's involved to protect children. And I think that we need to reward that. I think we also need to have cohort supervised treatment for those who are deemed eligible, because healing is possible for some. We need a way of assessing that, just like we do for people who commit child sexual crimes and others. We also, and thanks to Alondra for this, I want to call for reparations, the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. Right? We need to make this wrong right. And there are many aspects of society that need reparations. So it's not just this, but this just happens to be the thing that I'm working with. Complete funding for healthy living, holistic healing, for extreme organized abuse, informed care for people who have suffered this. Because again, it's really devastating. So many people just die. Going forward, how can we get help? How can we keep resting and digesting? Well, we have our little comfort station over here. So before you leave today, if you want to come and get a spritz or a hug or a squeeze for a stuffed animal, please feel free.
It's not so ominous.
It's not so ominous.
It doesn't seem like a bad idea now, does it?
Well, yeah, I hear ya. I definitely need it. You know, it can be so shocking and isolating to see this stuff and take it in as real. But I so applaud your courage for being willing to be here and walk on this journey with me. You're a big hugger. Okay, so the grounded nurturers and goodbye fairies, come on over to this table. So if you want to walk out this way, we'll have people to greet you. And again, I'll just do a closing prayer for our last one. So, just want to say gratitude. Gratitude for all who are here to help hold this space. I want to say a special prayer of thanks and encouragement to the warriors in this room who will walk forward and carry this message, however you will carry it. May you be blessed. May you be protected. May you be safe. And the ways that we can try to educate and support others, And whatever healing we might go forward through in our own heart, if there's more grief for us to do, may we be assisted to do that with ease. Just take a moment of silence for all who are still ensnared in the trap of satanic ritual abuse. And so it is. Blessed be. Amen. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you. Thank you to Anastasia. Big round of applause.